Hey everyone, it's Katie and Mike. Say hi, Mike.
Hi everybody.
So we got out of one of the best superhero movies ever, and that's really satisfying because it was for a superhero that for decades people said could not have a movie. Because you see, her backstory is too complicated, and her whole thing, well that's hard for like mainstream audiences to swallow.
It's so
Who
weird.
even is Diana Themyscira? Who is Wonder Woman? Hi. Yeah, so if you haven't heard yet, this movie is getting ridiculously good reviews, for good reason. It's
ridiculously good. It's
ridiculously well done. It is so thoughtful. So this is how I'm feeling. We talked about it before we turned on the camera, that we were going to try to keep this non-spoiler stuff as short as possible, because we assume a lot of the people who watch our videos have already seen this movie, or they're already like completely ready to watch it and then go and then watch our review. So we're gonna keep this short. You know, it's funny because, like, okay, so it was done really well, and I think on multiple viewings I'm gonna feel more. It's gonna hit me more, if that makes sense, because I knew it was good going in. There are people that I trust who had seen early screenings or who got to see last night who were moved by how good this was. So I trust them. So I was like, okay, I can do that. And I've been really emotional about it all day, because I've just been like, I'm so excited to be able to see this movie for a character that I really like, and for it to do as well as it is. And I want to see I want to see it done well. I want to see the relationship, the love interest, which everybody assumed was going to be handled terribly from the very moment that people found out that he was definitely going to be in the movie. I was looking forward to what I had heard about it, which was that the romance was done excellently. I feel like when I rewatch it, because we're definitely going to see it at least once more in theaters. And
also,
obviously,
speaking of theater, that theater was freaking nice.
Yeah, we got like one of the revamped ones at the.
Yeah, this was an Dolby Atmos, and so like,
and
the seats were nice and reclining.
Yeah, the seats were like the sofa, like the lazy boy seats, which was great because I have messed up my back, and I really didn't want to sit in a tough seat. It was actually not that. It was actually quite comfortable. And
they also vibrate with explosions and the heavy bass.
Yeah, but that only happened during the explosions on screen. It's not like they were vibrating, like, oh here, enjoy a nice light massage. No, it was during the biggest explosions, I was like, oh, this is shaking like from underneath me. So I will say, like, you know, people told me beforehand, like, oh, bring tissues, you're gonna cry. So I didn't cry, which just made me think, like, is there something wrong with me that I didn't cry?
I teared up a little.
See, you teared up. I didn't tear up. Maybe it's just because I was so focused on like trying to see every little thing that they did. You know what I mean? Because there's so much. If you're a fan of Themyscira of Paradise Island, if you're a fan of Diana, specifically of Diana as a bringer of peace, as an advocate for peace, as an advocate for community and love and compassion, like, there's so much there. So I'm interested in seeing how I feel about it now that I've seen the movie. And even though, like, and I think there was part of me that was still like kind of tensing up when it came to certain scenes, and and I think that most of it was handled really, really well, which is good. But I feel like on second viewing, I'll be a lot more. And also, like, I really have been emotional about other people's reactions that I've seen in the last few days. So maybe I'm just like that emotional energy I've definitely spent. Yeah, exactly. But I really like this movie. This is a movie that, like, I could see myself watching many, many times. This is, and we'll get into it, but it's set in World War I, which was really smart considering that one of Diana's nemesises is Dr. Poison, who is a female scientist who creates, like, horrible killer toxins and gas. And that was, like, the thing in World War I. And, I mean, the reason why usually Diana's origins are set in World War II is because that's when her comics started. And obviously she punches Nazis a lot. But it makes so much sense in the context of what her story is. Like, what her... the fact that her people were on this island and they weren't going to interfere in... They were protected and they weren't going to interfere in the squabbles of man. But then, you know, she leaves because there's this big war. And it makes so much more sense for it to be the first one, because while we think of the Nazis, and obviously the Nazis were not, like, the axis of power was, like, was bad, you know, like, it was sinister and horrible and, like, massive. But people forget that what we thought of as the Great War was, like, also really bad. It just had way more complicated, like, motives and reasoning. And it was also, as we see in the movie, they actually do a good job of saying, like, we're at the point in this where no one knows what they're doing. And we don't know how, and we're not entirely sure how to stop this war. And we're all, like, everybody, all the different sides are confused, and at this point we kind of all want it to end, but we don't know how to do that well, you know?
The world's never been in this situation before.
Yeah, and Steve Trevor does a really good job of when he gets... so, spoiler alert for this, at least, Steve Trevor lands on Themyscira, the island of the Amazons, and they wrap him in the Lasso of Truth, and they say, you must tell us what's going on. They do a really, actually, interesting job of setting up exactly what the Lasso of Truth, like, how that works in a really interesting way. Yeah. So if you were worried that doesn't get a lot of focus, that item, that, like, iconic Wonder Woman item, gets a lot of focus. So if you're a fan of that, it's there.
Kind of hinting at what you know, the big MacGuffin is that, you know.
We haven't gotten to that part yet. But when Steve is talking about the war and he's trying to describe it to because they say, what, you know, he's trying to say, like, I'm trying to stop the war, I have this information. And I think it was Diana who says, what war? And he looks at them like, he's like, the war that I've had to see 4 years of. And then he describes the amount of damage and bloodshed and the amount of countries that are involved in this, and they look horrified because it was a horrific war. So it makes total sense. Like so much of it is so smart. And while I really like the first Captain America, there is a sense of not necessarily, you know, honoring or, like, glorifying war, but also being like, well, this is definitely necessary, and let's beat some Nazis. Which, again, I'm okay with beating Nazis, that's fine. But what I really like about this movie is that a lot of it is centered, while still being very much about Diana, is centered around the idea that war is really bad. Like, it really isn't good, and it's something that Diana has to learn, is because she starts off as a kid and she wants to fight and she wants to be a warrior, and she has to learn that it's not about winning the war, it's about ending wars. It's a massive part of her storyline, and there's so many good moments of her growing as a person and becoming better. It's so good. So I do want to get to spoilers. So yeah, go see this movie. If you have not seen any of the DC movies, you don't really need to. There's very, very little from the earlier DC movies, so you don't have to worry about being confused. You can jump into this genuinely really easily, and I mean, if you know as much as Steve Trevor does at the beginning of the movie, it'll be fine. So you're good.
Steve Trevor knows nothing.
And Steve Trevor knows nothing. So yeah, I thought it was so well done. I'm anticipating this being how people get into the character. I'm looking forward to Diana, to Wonder Woman, being seen as more than just like a kind of cultural icon that people kind of know the visuals of, but don't know a lot about the character, or only know some about the character. I feel like this is breaking down that door, and people are going to be able to find her more accessible, even if you've never read a comic about her. And goodness knows, I'll be recommending certain ones for people who are interested. So, and I have also been doing that this past week. So, I want to get to spoilers. You want to get to spoilers?
Yes, let's get to spoilers.
All right, spoilers. Spoilers.
You want to talk about what? Cleaning up the origin? What do you want to do?
So, I mean, it cleans up the origin a little bit. I am actually impressed because the comic for a few years now has made this thing about how, like, oh, she wasn't really made from clay. She was the daughter of Zeus and blah, 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 blah. Here they kept it still. I think she was still supposed to be made from clay. Because it's not like, oh, your mom lied to you about that. It's that, like, I don't know. It was very vague. And I'm like, I at least like the idea that some of that was still kept, and it's not like it was that much of a difference. Does that make sense?
She's still the daughter of Hippolyta.
Well, she was always that, yeah.
But it's like, did they shape her out of clay, or whatever?
Yeah, whatever. Yeah, there's not as much.
They just skirt over it. And go.
I appreciate the fact that, like, that wasn't really the focus of, like, the big secret. Like, it's not even that, because that's the thing. It's not like, oh no, my mother lied to me about my father. It was like, I'm a god? I'm the god killer because I'm a god? That was the focus of the secret. Which is way better than my mother lied to me about my father. She doesn't seem to give a shit that her father is literally Zeus. Because it's not that much different from my mother sculpted me out of clay and then Zeus gifted me life. I'm just saying, like, at some point we're just talking semantics. But no, so at the beginning of the movie, her mother, Hippolyta, gives her the story about how Ares was struck down by Zeus, and then Zeus gave them this protected place because, but that Ares had been defeated specifically because he wanted to show all the gods that the humans, the mortals, weren't worthy of being cared for by the gods. And so he's like, I'm going to show you this by having them war with each other, and you'll see their sinister darkness inside, and that they're no good. But there's this prophecy of this weapon that the Amazons had, where if it's struck down by a strong warrior or used by a strong warrior, they can kill a god. So Diana, when she finds out about this great war. She's like, well, I need to take the sword and I need to stab Ares. This is what I'm going to do. Which is really funny when she's describing it to people later on, and they're just looking like, okay, like, you mean the god Ares? Yeah, the god Ares. And then all of you will stop fighting because he poisoned your mind. So, like, that's how this is going to work. I know how this works. But so there's this whole, she has this sword for like the whole movie. And in the comics, that's how it's been in the last few years, is that like, it's very sword heavy. And the idea is that like, oh, this is like the most powerful weapon she has. And then when she finally confronts Ares and tries to kill him with it, the sword just crushes. It
gets melted.
It basically gets like crush. And then that's when it's revealed, no, that's not the sword, or that's not the god killer. You're the god killer, because only another god can kill a god. Surprise! The sword was your mom not wanting to tell you the actual truth. Yeah. And the reason, I will say, it was interesting that they made a point several times that her mother did not tell her, not because she couldn't be trusted or because she was worried that Diana had too much power. It was because apparently the more that she knows, the more that she figures out, the easier it will be for Ares to find her. Which, I mean, why that's true, I don't know, but at least they had a reason beyond I don't want to tell my daughter some vital information that could be very helpful.
It could be more along the lines of, we want her to be,
I know, but at some point they know that she's not going to be safe.
Yeah, but like, she wants her to get used to the world outside of Themyscira.
I guess.
Rather than
I think it's more.
Oh my god! I'm just gonna walk up to Ares and stab him in the throat.
Yeah. So she goes with Steve. Steve has his own. I mean, still they have like similar goals. They have basically the same goal, to end the war. But she is like, no, I'm going to stab Ares. I have to stab Ares. And Steve's like, well, I need to get really specific information to the people that I'm helping spy on the Germans. So we need to do that. We need to get to London. And then after that, I need to go on this secret mission towards the front, because that's where all this poisonous gas is going to be dropped. And again, Diana's like, what's the front? And she's like, well, that's where all the fighting is. Oh, good, that's where I want to go. So we're on the same page. Let's do this. So they end up getting this ragtag team of guys together. This is something that I've seen people criticize, and it's pretty fair. There was a guy who I think was Moroccan. I don't know if they ever actually specifically said where he was from, but he was he said he wanted to be an actor, but he was kind of a con man, and he pulled a lot of lies. Flim flam. And then there was a Scottish guy, who was a sharpshooter, but also like killed people. Like she had said like, oh, so you kill people without even looking at them. And it's like, yeah, I'll just, I'm a mercenary. I'll kill whoever I need to. And then a Native American person named Chief, who would give supplies to both sides of the war. Surprisingly, that last detail is the least problematic thing about the character. I thought it was going to be pretty, like, oh, he plays both sides, but it's like, they make a pretty good point in the movie that most of the soldiers on either side are not evil. They're not, like, in their hearts, like, evil villains.
There's no Hydra troops.
There are no Hydra troops. Like, you actually see them as human beings towards the end of the movie, which I actually quite liked. And so it's less of a problem that he's like, yeah, and it's mostly like selling things like, He's, what was it? Edgar Rice Burroughs books to both sides of the war, but he would sell English tea to the Germans and, like, chocolate to the English. And
German beer to the
German beer to the English. And so it was less, like, it was less, you know, and I think some guns, but largely it was, you know, like, goods. And he was just like, I just have no stake in, like, they need stuff. I'm gonna sell them stuff. That's what I'm gonna do for as long as this war's going on. I'm gonna just get them stuff. Which, like I said, in itself is not, like, a bad thing necessarily. The bigger problem I have with it is that, like, he is a Native American character who smokes cigars and is named Chief and uses a tomahawk at one point. I'm like, could you guys not? Compared to Suicide Squad from last year, that did not handle their Native American character well at all, this was way better, but there's still problems. I think some of it is helped at least by the fact that the other two men in their little band with Steve and Diana, their little band of men, are all really pretty flawed characters, and the whole idea of, it's not like he was the only person with ethically questionable motives and, like, in their group, and the three men end up being very heroic. It reminds me a lot of, in terms of the comparisons to Captain America, it reminds me a heck of a lot of the what are they called in Captain America?
I know.
I can't think of it either.
I keep thinking of the Boys Brigade, but that's
and also I think the Boys Brigade is also a Twin Peaks thing.
Oh, okay.
I think they might have stolen it from that. No, it's Howling Commandos.
There you go.
So they remind me very much of the Howling Commandos. It probably also reminds you, if you saw, it reminded me of what I thought the little band, like, group of bandits was gonna be in Rogue One. Honestly, like, I was expecting more of that camaraderie and like companionship, and in that this movie does a really good job. I mean, it helps that those characters know each other already, but the way they interact with Diana is really good. Diana's relationship with Steve is done so well. There's a part towards the end where Steve, like, the last thing he says to her before basically they never see each other again. Spoiler, Steve Trevor dies in this, which I kind of saw coming. I mean, you knew he didn't survive. You knew he didn't survive to, like, modern day. And it makes more sense that if she felt burned by the past that he wouldn't survive. Oh man, I'm so glad so there's a part where, first of all, they have amazing chemistry. And I am super, super into Chris Pine's performance in this. It's handled really we were talking about this before, like, maybe one of the best love interests I've ever seen in a superhero movie. Like, right up, really high up there. So, Steve is great. His chemistry with Diane is really good. There's a lot of nuance in the way that their relationship has a back and forth. He's very, like, I don't know if he ever even says the words, like, I respect you, but there are ways in which both the dialogue, but also the writing of what was clearly in the script in terms of, like, choices that he makes, but then also these little nuanced little action thing, like little things that have him. I've seen versions of Steve Trevor where he is just, like, a broy, douchebaggy guy who pushes back against Diana's feminism, and instead here it just makes sense in a way that feels really natural. But anyway, so when he runs off to basically do the one thing he knows he can do, which is, like, basically sacrifice his life to help stop this, like, massive weapon from going off, he says, "I love you" to her. And for a second I was like, okay, so it does seem really soon, you know? But at the same time, they have such a connection, and it was very like, their relationship is already very intense.
And also, he knows he's going off to die.
And he knows he's going off to die. And also, like, everybody loves Diana. It's not even like I'm in love with you. It's that you meet Diana. I think Edda says something like, yeah, put glasses on her. That will make people, like that'll distract people from the most beautiful woman in the country. Which is really great. It's like, she knows what's going on. Like, so it's not even like I'm in love with you. That's not what the words were. It's like, I love you, because Diana inspires people, and Diana makes people feel that love for her because she's just a really good person. So I was like, at first, like, split second, I was like, that seems fast, and I was like, no, you know what, that's okay. I mean, everyone in this audience is falling in love with Diana. It's alright. No, so there's this part, though, where she gets knocked out, and we think that she can't hear what Steve's saying. And we know that Steve is saying goodbye to her, like, what his plan is. But she doesn't in the moment. And so you think that she doesn't hear his goodbye to him. And I was like, oh my god, this is the most heartbreaking thing I've ever seen. Like, this is rough. And they're showing some really rough things in this movie already. Like, there's some tragic stuff going on, but this is really tragic. Like, it's hard to take the cake from Peggy having to try to talk on the radio to Steve, and then Steve cutting out because he's crashed and she thinks he's dead then for, like, basically the majority of her life. But this was pretty rough. But it's later on, so she freaks out during her big fight with Ares, and Ares is convinced that, like, oh yeah, I've proven to you, you should be working with me. Look at how much power we have, and these people are, you know, all they need is just a little bit of corruption, and then they get completely corrupt, and they don't deserve your protection, they don't deserve anything, because look at what they do to each other.
Restore the earth to the paradise of the gods.
Yeah, he was like, I'm gonna restore like, none of the other gods understood this. I'm gonna restore the earth to yeah, so I'm like, you should do this with me. And she's almost she's about to kill Dr. Poison. Like, she's about to drop a literal tank on this woman. And then I don't know if that is that she could then the actual way this is shown, I'm assuming that she could read lips and she figured out what Steve was trying to say to her. But at least artistically speaking, we finally get to hear what Steve said. And he says something like, I need to be the one to fly this plane, or like, I need to be the one to do this. And Diana's like, no, I will do it. And he said, no, I need to do this so you can save the world.
I can save today, you save the world.
Yeah. Which is incredible. And he has, like, a lot of really good moments in this movie where he lets her take the wheel, but is completely supportive and, like, is giving her backup. Like, he is her backup. So he's really proactive, but he also understands that she knows what she's doing, for the most part. There are a few points where he disagrees with her and holds her back, but then it's like, it's handled well. It's more of a disagreement, not a, I don't trust you to do this.
We can't have you keep doing this and keep you undercover. Yeah,
exactly. Yeah, that was really good. It's like, you literally have, like, the brightest, you are not wearing pants. You can't just walk, you can't walk around without pants on. People will notice. There were a lot of good moments. Also, alright, I'll get to it. I will get to it. I'll get to the costume, okay? But she ends up, so she essentially has then this great moment where she declares, like, no, I've seen these people. Like, you're wrong about them. Because they're good. They are good. They have the power to do good. It's not about them deserving my protection. It's about what I believe. And what I believe is love. And it's great because she's taking what Steve talked to her about. And she's embraced, you know what I mean? So it's not like him, like, teaching her or, like, directly for, like, guiding her, but it's her being inspired by humankind, by good people. It's her being inspired by good people to be the best person that she is, and then inspire more people. And that's how her character is. It's really done well. So everything about the way they handle war and conflict, and then Diana's point of view about how she saves people, about her role as a hero, is so good. Like, I am thinking about it now, and again, I kind of knew some of this, at least going in, but they handle it with a restraint that I have never seen. Honestly, I've not seen a DC, like, product do. Maybe a subject outside of, like, specific comics. Largely it was just really good. Oh, but I was going to say, so, one of the smartest things they did, they did not show the costume until a really specific part in the movie. The iconic costume. We know that she takes it. We know that she's wearing it underneath. Like, the whole time, she's wearing this, like, this robe thing. Or this, like, this cloak. And then later on, like, she's wearing British clothing, you know. Like, clothing that they got her. We talked about, there was a shopping montage, which was pretty fun. I am a big fan of shopping montages. And Etta has some cute moments in there. There was not enough Etta Candy. I will say that much. That is, like, my biggest complaint. They needed, like, 3 more Etta Candy scenes. They needed way more the Etta-Diana friendship, because that is such a huge part of the earliest Wonder Woman comics.
Yeah, maybe you can do a World War II sequel now. I
think they're doing a contemporary one. That's what I saw today. But apparently, they're like, oh, congratulations.
You could just do a World War II sequel whenever you want, though. You don't have to go in order.
That's a good point. I would also, I mean, they could also do flashbacks. I would really like for, what is her name? I'm looking it up. Sorry, people, I'm looking up. Sorry. Lucy Davis, played Etta. She was very good. But I wanted more because she's a delight, and I was really glad that they got her in, but she only got to do so much, you know?
Here's the thing, what I think is on the cutting room floor of this movie is a lot of scenes with Eros and
apparently there were no cutting, apparently they cut no scenes.
Really?
Apparently. That's what I was told.
That's actually pretty shocking because it really feels like there's very little between them, and that villain reveal is sort of not really out of nowhere, but it's sort of like there's no seed of it, you know what I mean?
Yeah. So,
even though I think it was brilliant, like, that was a brilliant turn. But there was, like, we knew the German guy was not Ares.
Yeah, so they set it up that, like, we see this guy, and he's, like, taking this, like, poison, and it's, like, the Dr. Poison is the guy's protege, and it's hinted at that, like, oh, maybe he has power or whatever, or, like, maybe he's that, and Diana, like, jumps to that conclusion, oh, of course!
He is Ares!
He's the one controlling everything, he must be! And I was like, okay, I guess she figured that out without having to see those clues. But I was thinking, like, this seems a little too clear forward. And then, so David Thewlis, I can't say his name, who was Professor Lupin in the Harry Potter movies, is in this as this, like, I like a
He's another senator
lord.
or something.
No, I mean it's not a senator, but
I know,
it's like
but
yeah,
British version.
Yeah. So who's trying to get an armistice signed, which would hopefully lead to peace. But he's the only he's one of the only characters in the movie. So I'm like, all right, there's a decent chance that this is actually Ares. That like that's a twist. And I will say I really like the fact that the way that they handled because it's not brute force. Like that's the thing. It's not Ares never through until the very end of the movie when he's fighting Diana, he doesn't use brute force to start wars. He does it through whispers and through confusion and through like inspiration for terrible things. And it feels, like I said, nuanced and thoughtful about how how war and conflict and violence against innocent people is caused. It's amazing. So yeah, so I'm trying to think what else. I think generally the way I'm thinking of it is that it was done really well. Oh, so okay, so we don't see her costume for or her the Wonder Woman costume, but we know that she took it because we kind of see her look at it. But it's only when they say oh, we got to keep going. They're in the trenches. We have to keep going. But she finds out from one of the peasants that's kind of hovering this trench that the nearby village has been basically kept prisoner. They're being put to work. They're basically slaves, and no one's been able to get farther, and get to them in months and months and months. So Diana just walks up. Over. We see her take off the other clothes, which the men were like, why is she stripping in front of us? That was the clear look. But she just walks up. She just starts doing her bracers, slowly but surely. Everybody is shocked that this is working. And then she liberates the entire town. And I think she did headbutt a tank, right? Because that is a proud Wonder Woman tradition.
I think so.
Yeah.
The tank in the town, I think.
I'm gonna have to I want to rewatch this specifically for amazing things that Diana does. But one of the best things about that scene, so there is a part during this big battle that when Steve gets on the island, some of the Germans follow him through to Themyscira, through the thing of Themyscira, and so the Amazons start fighting these people on their beach, and there's a bit where sorry, I'm looking it up. Where Robin Wright's character, who is amazing in this, she's only in it at the very, very beginning. She's the Amazon trainer who dies. But she gets to be awesome in this. And I pointed out to people that's Princess Buttercup from The Princess Bride. And she gets to hold a sword and be awesome in this. But there's a part where she calls for one of her warriors to say shield, and she runs up and she jumps on the shield, and then they push her to fling her off. And Steve sees this, and so later he goes, oh, I've got an eye. They're trying to help Diana and trying to get up to this to this clock tower, and so he tells the other men to hold this tank door, basically, and then says, Diana, shield, and she runs, and they throw her. And not only is this a great callback, and shows that Steve is smart and resourceful, and thinks on his feet, and learns, that's his way, it's also a great metaphor for the fact that these men are basically in supportive roles, and helping her
achieve her goal.
Achieve the goal that basically will save people's lives. It's such a great moment, and then she just smashes through that clock tower, and it's amazing. There are really funny moments in this, too. I want to call out the ice cream scene, which I already kind of knew about. That's directly from the comics. There is a scene, I forget which writer, it might have been Greg Rucka, but there's a scene where she tries ice cream for the first time, and she is just like, her face lights up in the comic, and she says, "This is wonderful." And then she goes like, "You should be..." How did they phrase it? It was basically directly phrased like that in the comic. But like, "You should be very proud that you made this. This is wonderful. This is wonderful." She also, like, the first time she sees a baby, because she was the only baby on the island, she is like, her face lights up. And again, it's not in a, "Oh, I'm a woman and I see a baby." It's literally, I've never seen a child before. I've never, like, she's just glowing. The part where she gets to see snow for the first time was also really good. But at the same time, she knows all these languages. She also understands how, like, chemistry works, because later on she starts to describe, like, notes and stuff, and she obviously understands what those things are. And she talks to Steve about, like, she doesn't quite know what marriage is, but she definitely knows what sex is. So it's not like she's completely naive. It's like, I'm really proud. I'm really not proud. I'm really happy with the way that they handled her. And I will say, I think it's Gal Gadot. I never know how to pronounce her name, and I'm sorry. But the thing I will say about her is that she is Diana in this. There are so many lines in this where Diana is talking about honor and a peace and love and like compassion, where she uses like those words, but she's adamant, and it's an earnest call to different people throughout the movie. And in a lesser actress, or an actress who didn't get Diana, this would come off trite, or it would come off as super naive, or it would just come off as like, "Okay, you said that," but it's like, it would come off as ineffective.
Or maybe a lack of understanding of the situation.
Yeah, or just like, oh, someone just wrote that, but like, it doesn't, you're not convinced, right? You're not convinced of the argument, and you really need to be convinced in this kind of movie. She nails it. Like, it's ridiculous how good she is in this. She's also has like chemistry with everyone in the cast. And again, like, there's some naivete, but largely it's not like she's a child. They don't treat her in the new world like a complete child, you know? It's just like someone from a very different culture. And I think that there's some good balance there. And also the Amazons were amazing. I've seen so many people be like, "I want a movie just about them. Can we get a movie about them?"
Yeah, for how much time we spent with them early, I really thought we were going to get some of them to come to, over with.
I'm honestly thinking, because I mean, it's not like it's... First of all, I'm pretty sure some of them show up in Justice League. Because I think what happens is, I think part of this is that the Amazons take on the call for aid when people from the fourth world come a calling. Because that Mother Box is coming. The Justice League trailer was before the movie, and I was like, Mother Box, motherfucker. God, that movie could honestly be a mess, and I know it's probably going to be kind of a mess, but at the same time, I'm also really excited because they did a really good job with this, and also I really love the Fourth World stuff, and I'm excited to see what they do with it, and I hope that it's just really good.
And they also, they also really like Wonder Bat, seemingly.
They I'm really hoping for more Bruce Diana stuff in a good way, even if it's just their dynamics really interesting.
A lot of the Justice League trailer stuff seems like very little Superman.
He's dead, Mike, and he's never coming back.
Not okay.
All right, I will say
believe that.
I will say one of the things I really wish that they were able to do, and I was hoping for this basically since I saw Batman vs Superman, was I really, really wanted the bookend present day stuff to be Diana telling this to Lois in an interview, because those two in real life adore each other. And I'm talking about Amy Adams and Gal Gadot. I'm gonna keep pronouncing her name differently, and I'll get it one of these days. But they adore each other in real life, and they're really sweet. And also, that friendship in the comics is a really interesting, really only explored a few times sort of thing. So I was really hoping that we would be able to see it. That was kind of what I was hoping the bookend would be, especially because I knew it was going to be a modern day. So the fact that we didn't get that kind of bummed me out. Besides that, Etta needed some more. I'm sure I'll think of other things that they probably could have tweaked a little bit. Oh, I know one thing that someone brought up. Bilal brought it up on Twitter, is that, first of all, the casting of the Amazons was great for both like more athletic, like muscular body type, but also there was so many different ethnicities in the actresses that were cast. This is not an all-white Paradise Island, and that's amazing, and I'm so happy about that. The problem is that while there were also speaking roles for a lot of black women and other women of color, and those roles were not just servants or, they were one of them was I think a senator or a general. But they, Diana specifically called them by a title. The problem is that they weren't actually named, they're named in the credits. They're not actually named in the script. No one actually says their name. I think maybe one of them might have been named, offhand, but you can barely tell that when someone was shouting their name that they were talking to the same person. So it would have been nice if there was a little more, just so that they actually had names,
Fleshing out of the character.
Yeah, just a little bit. And that was just a slight dialogue change, and it wouldn't have made it any less natural sounding. So that could have been a little better. It's a smaller complaint, but I think that it's a fair complaint, because obviously, But I also really liked, someone else pointed this out, that London, we only see London a little bit, but it's actually, you see people of color in London.
It's a very diverse one.
Yeah, in the 1910s. That's super important, because a lot of times if
London
you have
gets to be a bunch of white guys.
Or New York. I mean, think about Agent Carter. As much as we love that series, Agent Carter was super white in the 1940s in New York, which is ridiculous. So the fact that we got to see lots of different people in Europe, basically, that weren't just white people, is really important. I'm trying to think if there's anything else off the top of my head. Again, I am so shocked at how thoughtful this movie is. It deals with a lot of big issues, but in a way, and the answers to them are largely compassion, love, earnest fighting for the future and fighting for protecting innocent people. Bravery through compassion is a big moment. Oh, I might have mentioned this before, but I want to stress how good this scene was. So there's a scene in the middle, smack dab in the middle of the movie, where Steve is like, I'm going to go to the front lines, even though they haven't, they told me not, they forbid me to. And she's like, but that means you were lying in there. He was like, yeah, I'm a spy. I have to lie sometimes, and I was lying. And she said, well, how do I know that you're not lying to me right now, and you're not gonna just You're just, like, telling me what I want to hear, and then you're gonna, you know, you're gonna betray me. And he then chooses, because he knows he knows what the Lasso of Truth does. He's seen it. He actually doesn't like it either. He really does not like how that feels on him. Specifically because, like, he was taught to, like, keep secrets and lie, but specifically keep secrets. And then they were basically pushed out of him. But he makes the choice to take the lasso and tell her, I'm telling you the truth. That is, like, it's such a good moment. It's so, again, there's a thing in the Marston run of Wonder Woman, which is the first stories, about submission and the idea of submitting to another person. And it doesn't quite get as specific as it does in the comics, because there's some visuals in the comics that were not in this movie. But that's the idea of trust and choosing to offer up, you know, choosing to grab the rope and be true, and to show that you're being truthful to someone. That's something really powerful. And again, this movie avoids the love interests having any shred of, like, toxic masculinity. I think if I had to complain about any scene with Steve, is the part where he's completely naked, which I didn't mind. Don't get me wrong, I didn't mind. But there's a part where she's like, and what is that? And she means a watch that's on the floor. But he clearly thinks she means his penis. And
she could have also meant the penis.
And she could have also meant that. But
and then Steve was like, "Oh, that down there.
Oh, that down there. That's a watch." It was just like, oh, that's a little. It's an easy joke, but I will say the fact that, like, the fact that the only person we see get nude bathing on Themyscira is Steve Trevor is it's so smart. Because that's a thing. That's a thing in some of the adaptations. Is like bathing women. You know. No. It's Steve. Steve's the one that gets naked. Gets very naked at one point. I can't think of anything else. I really liked it. It was done really well. I'm sure I'm gonna like it even more when I see it again. But I'm excited. I'm excited for people to meet this version of Diana, and I'm so glad that a lot of people's really first time experiencing the character is through a project that has taken so much care to get at the core of the character. So I mean, granted, like, they might have seen her in Batman vs. Superman, but obviously she was a side character there. But yeah, I'm pretty darn thrilled. And I'm just excited for a lot of people that I know personally who really needed this movie.
Here's one thing that I don't know.
Okay.
Is it an interesting choice to have Diana based in France?
I mean, it's interesting just because... Sorry, my throat's really dry. Oh, you mean in the...
modern day.
I mean, it kind of makes sense. I'm not really that...
But I mean, like, I never really knew where Diana's, like, hanging out when she's not Wonder
Usually
Woman.
America. I think usually it's America. Sorry, I'm really tired.
I mean, yeah, I figured that, but I mean, like, is it an interesting choice to have her just sort of based in France?
I mean, it makes sense in terms of, like, because she's been, like, kind of staying away from the world. So she kind of stayed in France. I don't know. At this point, I'm not gonna lie, I'm very tired. I had a very good time, and like I said, I think we're definitely gonna see it again. I'm I'm just happy. I'm happy that this worked. And I'm really excited for little girls to get to know a Diana who saves the day through embracing love as her, like,
and compassion.
Love and compassion and empathy as her defining traits as a hero. That's really cool. I'm really happy. Sorry, I keep saying that, but I'm really tired, and that's basically what's on my mind right now. And my throat's dying. So, do you have anything else?
I think I'm good.
I think I'm good too. Go see the movie, if we haven't spoiled it too much for you. Go see it. You're gonna like it. You'll probably have some complaints like we did. It needed more edit, but
oh, you know what? You know what's a minor nitpick?
What?
The first scene where Steve is in the Lasso of Truth, on Themyscira, and he starts listing off those World War I stats on, like, what's going on.
Oh, you thought it was too specific?
I kind of think Steve Trevor's kind of like the guy that would say 20-some-odd countries and, like, millions and millions dead, and you know what I mean?
Yeah,
like,
maybe, but maybe
it's
like
so
he
exact numbers.
Yeah, but at the same time, like, I don't know. I think I think Pine's performance sells it because he is, like, clearly suffering.
Yeah, I know, but he still feels like the kind of guy that would keep it in generalities. And that makes me also think maybe the Lasso of Truth compels you to tell facts.
I think maybe it's one of those things where,
you
like,
may have picked up, but don't remember as well.
Yeah, I mean, I think it makes you speak clearly.
I guess.
Gosh, I want to see this movie again. I'm not the first person to say that. I really want to see this movie again. It will have to be sometime this week. All right, so with that, Katie and Mike.
Hey, everybody.
Yeah.
Hi.
Hi. JustPlainSomething.com. We'll see you later.
Bye, everybody.
Bye.